What's going on, everyone? Coach Aaron here, back again with another video to help you dominate the platform. Alright, what's going on, everyone? Today we're going to continue on this Rules of Performance series, and we're going to go into the bench press and the Instagram post I made about the bench press rules of performance. If you missed out on the squat video, I'll put the little card for it above and the link in the description so you can go look at the rules of performance for the squat if you want to. But let's head on over to my computer and we'll go over the Instagram post. I'm over here at my computer. Here is the post from my Instagram page. I'll put the link to that below as well so you can go read this if you want to. But we're going to go through everything here in this post today and go a little more in depth onto some of the points just to get some more information for you all. All right, so let's get started. So first thing we want to go over is the setup. So these are the key points that you need in place in order to be set up properly to get that first command. Okay, and we'll go over the commands later. So just to go through it real quick: head on bench, shoulders on bench, butt on bench, feet flat on the ground, fingers gripping bar, thumbs around, and elbows locked. Okay, so we'll look at this first group of three. Your head, shoulders, and butt must be on the bench. Okay, shoulders are pretty easy to do. For the head and butt, as long as any part of your head and any part of your butt is touching the bench, then that's fine. You don't have to be like your entire butt completely flat. If you have your arch and you have your leg drive, and as long as a little bit of your butt's touching, then that is fine. Okay, and then we'll go over here. The feet must be flat on the ground. In other competitions, in other federations, you're allowed to have the heels up in the air and be up on your toes. In USA Powerlifting, USAPL, and the IPF, the feet must be flat on the ground, as flat as the shoe allows. So if your shoe has like a natural little bend in the front, or maybe a little bit of a natural bend in the back, that's fine. But again, if you have the heels up, or maybe you're up on the side or something like that, then they're not going to give you that first command. So feet must be flat on the ground. All right, next two, the fingers must be gripping the bar. And in the bench press, unlike the squat, your thumb must be around the bar. So you have to have the thumb wrapped around. You cannot do what's called a thumbless grip or a suicide grip. Okay, so you have to have the thumbs around. There's also no minimum grip that you can take, so you can go as narrow as you want if you want to do a close grip, but there is a limit on how wide you can go, and that width is marked by those power rings on the powerlifting bar. So your pointer finger or index finger, whatever you want to call it, has to be covering those rings. That's the maximum you can go. And in the rule book, you'll see it says the whole of the finger has to be covering the ring. So you can't do some kind of weird trick where if here is the power ring, you can't just like barely touch it with your finger and then have the rest of your hand outside. You must be covering it with the whole of the finger. So they'll be looking at that mark to make sure you're actually covering the mark. And then the final point, the elbows must be locked, okay? So you can't have soft elbows at the beginning. Once the elbows are locked out and all these other things are in place, then the side referees put their hands down and the chief referee gives you the first command, which we'll go to in an upcoming slide. So let's continue on. Another important point, kind of like in the squat, everyone argues about squat depth and whether someone went deep enough. In the bench press, a lot of people argue about the pause and whether if the pause was too long or not long enough. And for the people that think that the pause is too long, an important thing to look at is what the rule says. And the rule says that the bar must be held motionless in order to receive the press command. Oftentimes, lifters think the pause is too long, but if you actually go watch their video or watch their lift in real time, you'll see they're still sinking the bar into their chest, deeper and deeper into their chest, or they're not sinking, but they touch their chest, but then they're shaking and wobbling and bouncing around, waiting for that press command to try and time it. So the bar has to come to a complete stop, it has to be motionless, and then once the referee sees that and sees that it's motionless and you're not trying to continue to sink it in or time the press or anything, then they give you the press command. So when you're underneath that heavy load, you're keeping everything tight and you're trying to touch, it's gonna feel a lot longer than it actually is if you go back and watch the video. And if you're not practicing it in the gym, then it might feel a lot longer than what you do in the gym since you're not practicing a long enough pause, or maybe you're not practicing a pause at all. So it's important that the faster you get the bar to be motionless, the faster you'll get the press command. All right, and here are the commands. So at the start, when you have that position of the head, shoulders, and butt on the bench, feet flat on the ground, gripping the bar and elbows locked, then that's when you get the start command. Then that's when you can bring the bar down to your torso. Once the bar is motionless on your torso, that's when you get the press command, and then you're allowed to press it up. And once you come back to that finished position of the elbows locked out again, that's when you get the rack command. So there are 3 commands in the bench press, and one of the commands is actually during the lift itself. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. On top of that, like we went over in the setup, there are a lot of things to focus on with the head, the butt, the feet, the grip, the elbows, everything like that. So the bench typically is the most technical as far as the competition, and making sure you're hitting all those points of contact and making sure you're listening to the commands and making sure you get the bars motionless as fast as possible to get a quick press command. All right, so we will continue on. Just like in the squat, and you'll see later on in the deadlift in a future video, there is no downward motion allowed in powerlifting. The bar can slow down, the bar can stop, the bar can even lock out uneven. So if you have like a stronger arm and your right arm locks out and then your left arm locks out, as long as the bar did not go back down, then it is fine. But as soon as that entire bar starts going down, then that is a no lift. And usually the referees, especially the chief referee, have a good point of view to look right at the center of the bar, okay, where that center knurling is. And that way, if the bar tilts one way or the other, that center of the bar is still going to be in the same position. So you can tell the bar did not go down. But if that entire center of the bar drops down, then you know that the bar is going down. All right, we'll continue on. Again, elbows. So just like in the squat, you have to have the knees locked out at the beginning and the end. In the bench press, you have to have the elbows locked out in the beginning and the end. So if you don't have them locked out at the beginning, oftentimes the referees will keep their hands up, but you won't get the start command. They'll tell you to replace the bar, say that your elbows need to be locked out. Then you have to sit up again and take it out and focusing on locking it out. At the end, if you're bringing it and you're holding it at the top and they feel like your elbow isn't locked out, but you're still holding, you're not continuing to complete the lift, then they'll tell you to rack the bar, but you may still get a red light for not locking it out just because you weren't continuing the lift at all. They're not gonna just hold it, make you hold it there. So important thing is elbows locked out at the start, the end. There are no medical exemptions for this. You have to lock out your elbows or you risk getting some red lights. Those points of contact that we went over in the setup, those must remain in place during the lift from the start through the press and into the rack. You have to keep those positions. So it's very hard to lift your shoulders off the bench, but what happens often is the head or the butt comes off the bench. So someone, when they're bringing the bar down, might lift their head up, or when they're pushing the bar up, might lift their butt up. So those are not allowed. As long as any part of your head or any part of your butt is still touching, even if your glutes like flex and your hips go up a little bit, but your glutes are still touching, then you're fine. But if they are completely off the bench and the referee can see daylight through, or they can see the other referee through where your butt came off the bench, then that's obviously a no lift. And then for the feet have to stay flat so they can't come up. If for some reason the feet slide, because like maybe the carpet's slippery or shoes are slippery and you push your legs really hard and the feet slide, that is fine because your feet are still on the ground. But if you start raising your heel or the side of your foot or something like that, or just pick it up and move it, then that is a no lift. All right, and then here are some other rules. Bench press, like I said, very technical, a lot of things to focus on, a lot of things that don't come up often, but they are still rules. So one, obviously if the spotters touch the bar, they accidentally touch it or they thought the bar went down or something like that, then that's unfortunately no lift, and then that's on you and your coach to go to the referees or to the jury, something like that, and be able to get a relift if it was not your fault for the spotters touching it. If for some reason you don't bring it down to your chest, but somehow you get a press command and a rack command, if you don't touch your torso, so you can touch your chest or your abdominals, so I just said put it in here as torso. If you don't touch, no lift. If for some reason you touch your belt, this happens a little bit more often in equip lifting because they have the belt to hold the shirt down, but really in both the raw and equip lifting, it's pretty rare. But if for some reason the bar touches the belt, then that's a no lift. Feet contacting bench or support. So if you're shoving your feet underneath the little support for the bench coming down and using it to kind of prop you in position and aid you in the lift, then that's not allowed. You have to have your feet away from those supports and not using it to help you out. Supporting it on the rack. We went over this in the squat. It's a lot less common in the squat, but it can sometimes happen in the bench if you press back too fast and you you ramp it up the supports to kind of help you in the lift and get it back into the rack, then that is a no lift. If you accidentally like clip it, like you hit the hook or something and bounce off of it and it's not helping you, then that is fine. But again, that's a judgment call, so you have to just be careful of it. But usually you can tell whether it's accidental or if it's actually trying to support and use it to help you out. And then the last one, again, a little bit rare and kind of hard to judge, but heaving or sinking. They don't really have a definition for these things in the rule book. The way I see, and I see a lot of referees describe it and what they're looking for, is mainly focusing on this word sinking. And what that is after the press command, if you sink it further into the torso. You can kind of think of that as well as downward motion, because it is downward motion, it's just happening on the torso into the person's body rather than in the air after the press. So if a lifter brings it down to their chest, they get the press command and then they bring it down and sink it in to get some momentum and then press it up, then that is a no lift. After the press command, you have to just push it up. All right, so these are some of the finer points, but they happen much less often. And then over here in the text, if you want to go look at it, I just describe everything that we went over here in each point. And I also give the infraction card colors. Important for you to know the colors so you can go through and look at it and see that if you jump the commands, it's a yellow card. Downward motion is a blue card. Soft elbows, also a blue card. Lifting the head, shoulders, or butt off the bench or feet off the ground is a yellow card. For those smaller errors, spotters touching it, yellow card. Not touching your torso, red card. Touching the belt, red card. Using the bench or the supports with your feet to help you out, yellow card. Using the rack to support you and aid you in the lift, yellow card. And then the heaving or sinking, which you can kind of think of as downward motion, even though it's a separate failure, is also a yellow card. So hopefully that helps you out. If you have any questions about the bench press rules of performance or any of these little finer points as far as like the press command or feet being flat on the ground or anything like that, you can comment that below and I will help you out. All right, but I'll see you next time.